Hi, college algebra students. This is part 2 of our study guide. I'm sorry I had to split it up like that, but I ran into a problem I had with a meeting. So here we go. Number 32. So number 32 wants 2 items. It says first, find the restrictions on the variable, which is just what can the variable not be? Otherwise, it would be undefined. So what would make x undefined or 0 in the denominator? Well, here, if x is 0, we're in trouble. So x cannot equal 0. They don't make you write it in any special difficult form. They just want you to choose something that looks like this. The other thing that x cannot be, if we were to set this equal and solve to 0 and solve for x, would be -3. So in this case, 2 items that x cannot be. Okay, now they want us to solve this equation. So I'm going to write it over so I have a little more room. Then, because I have an equal sign, I'm going to find the LCD, which in this case is going to be x times x plus 3 times 4. Okay, and I'm going to multiply all the tops by that LCD, every single one of them. Okay, and then I'm going to see what cancels. So in this case, the x's cancel, not the 4, sorry, and I have 1 times 4 times x plus 3 plus the parenthesis packet cancels here. I have 2 times 4x, which is 8x. And the 4's cancel here, and I have 1 times x times the parenthesis packet. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to clean it up a little bit, so I'm going to distribute. I get 4x plus 12 plus 8x equals x squared plus 3x. Okay. Now I'm going to combine like terms. This is going to be 12x plus 12 on the left, x squared plus 3x on the right. Okay, I'm going to move all my terms to the right and combine, and I'm going to get x squared minus 9x minus 12. Okay, now from this, I need to solve for x and make sure that my x isn't any of the items that I am not allowed to have. Well, when I look at factors of 12 and look to see if they could combine to give me a 9, that's not possible, which means we have to do a quadratic equation or quadratic formula. Okay, so I'm going to go over here. I'm going to do x equals opposite of b plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c. Okay, and if you're not so sure about that quadratic formula, remember that we did a quadratic formula really carefully earlier. I'm looking through my papers to see if I can find exactly which one of those. I think it might have even been on the first page. It is here. Remember, from part 1, we went through a quadratic formula problem just like this right here where we took our time. So if you need to, you can go back and look at the formula there and make sure that you're doing it correctly. All right, unfortunately, this one is not, oops, I already forgot, all over 2a. This one is not going to come out very pretty. I mean, not that the other one did either, but this is going to come out to be 9 plus or minus, okay. Oh, and I put a 91 instead of an 81. You guys are going to fire me. I'm just ruining stuff over here. Okay. This is going to be, once you figure out your radicand here, 129, which cannot be reduced in any way, shape, or form. And these are not one of the items that x cannot be. So those are your answers. And there you are. Okay. All right, number 33. Determine whether the given function has a minimum or maximum value, and then find the coordinates of that point. Well, what this means is that this guy is a parabola. And since that leading coefficient there is positive, it means it looks like this, right? And it's going to have a minimum. So that's the first part. Now it wants the coordinates, which means it wants the vertex. Oops. Okay. So the x coordinate of the vertex is going to be opposite of b over 2a. The y coordinate of the vertex is going to be, you're going to plug that in for x and solve. All right, now this one's going to be really ugly. I wanted to do one like this because yours is also going to be really ugly on your test. Well, some of yours will be. Okay, here we go. So opposite of b, b is -1, so this would be a +1, over 2 times a. That means our x coordinate we're looking at is a 1/6. Okay, now we're going to put in 1/6 for x. You can put this right into your calculator and it will come out with a value for you. Or you can work it out by hand, making sure that you have a common denominator the whole way through. And you're going to come out with the ever so lovely -43/12. Told you it was ugly. And that's going to be your vertex or your minimum point. Okay. All right, 34. Evaluate the function at the given value of the independent variable and simplify. Well, that sounds very complicated, but actually it just wants you to take this and put it in for x. It's just a composition. So if I put in x plus 3 where x squared is and evaluate it, this means there's 2 of them. I'm going to have to FOIL it out and then subtract by 6. So I'm going to have x squared plus 3x plus 3x plus 9 minus 6. Combine like terms and I get x squared plus 6x plus 3. And that's my answer. It's all you have to do. All right, 35 is another word problem back from the very first day of class. It says you inherit $7,000 from a very wealthy grandparent with the stipulation that for the first year, the money must be invested in 2 stocks, paying 6% and 8% annual interest, respectively. How much should be invested at each rate if the total interest earned for the year is $520? Okay, well, here's what we know. We need to put an amount into stock 1, and we need to put an amount into stock 2. I'm going to say we're going to put in X into stock 1. So how much do we put into stock 2? Well, if we have 7,000, we're going to put in 7,000 minus X. Does that make sense? If we put in some amount here, this is just going to be the total minus that amount. That's what goes into that one. Okay, now let's make an equation using what we know about the interest. We're going to have to change these to decimals. We know that stock 1 pays 6% and we put in an X amount of money. Then we know stock 2 earns 8% and we put in this amount of money. Okay, that is going to equal $520 because this is just for interest. So this was stock 1, we said was at 6%. This is stock 2, we're going to call it at 8%, but we changed it to a decimal. And when we add up this amount of money, we're going to get $520. Okay, let's clean it up a little bit. We're going to distribute this 0.08 through here. 0.08 times 7,000 is 560 minus 0.08x equals 520. Okay, let's combine these x terms here. I get negative 0.02x. I'm going to subtract my 560 and I get negative 40. Okay, I just combine like terms and put all the x's on this side and the constants on that. All right, now if I divide by negative 0.02, x is $2,000. There we go. Now we're not completely done, but we're able to finish because we now know we put in, because this is what x was. X went into stock 1 at the 6% interest. Okay, what went in at 8% interest? 7,000 minus x. So 7,000 minus 2,000, 5,000 at 8%. Those are the two answers. That's what we were looking for. This x corresponds with this one. So when we solved it and got 2,000, that 2,000 was at 6%, 7,000 minus 2,000, 5,000 at 8%. All right, got another word problem. We have a road trip. Okay, we have 3 drivers. We have Bob, we have Cindy, and we have Will. And the total distance they drove on the trip was 540 miles. How much did each person drive? Well, let's see. Bob drove 1/3 the distance that Cindy drove. And Will drives 22 more miles than Cindy drove. Well, we don't know anything about Cindy. So I'm going to call her amount of miles X. Okay, now let's go back to Bob. Bob drove 1/3 what Cindy drove. So Bob drove 1/3 X. And Will drove 22 miles more. Okay, so X plus 22. That should equal 540. Now all we have to do is combine like terms. Okay, so I have 1/3 plus 1 plus 1. Okay, so that's 2 plus 1/3. That's going to be 7/3. And then I'm going to subtract my 22 and I get 518. Now I'm going to do 518 divided by 7/3, which is the same as 518 times 3/7, right? Because we keep change flip. And I get 222 miles. Now, what does that mean? Well, what did X represent? X was the amount of miles Cindy drove. That's what X is. Okay. All right. What does that mean for Bob? Bob drove 1/3 times what Cindy drove. 1/3 the distance Cindy drove. Put that right in your calculator. Bob drove 74 miles. Okay, what did Will drive? Will drove X, which was 222, plus 22. Will drove 244 miles. And if you add all 3 of those together, you should end up, and you do, with the 540 miles total. We got it. Okay, we have another quadratic formula problem. All right, so here we go. It looks like you should be able to factor it, but it actually does not factor. So let's break it down. A is 1, B is 4, C is 5. Okay, see if we can remember our formula. Opposite of B, plus or minus B squared minus 4AC, all over 2A. Okay, this is -4 plus or minus. When you do this in your calculator, you're going to get -4 all divided by 2. Okay, we're going to clean it up a little bit more. What's the square root of -4? That's 2i. We do have a magic triangle situation. So if I divide each corner by 2, I get -2 plus or minus I. And there's our answer. Okay, almost done. Just this page and one more. All right. So this is kind of an interesting take on that perpendicular line question that we had before. So some of you will have this rather than that one. All right, so the solid line, L, contains the point -3, 5. Okay, we have that. It is perpendicular to the dotted line whose equation is 4. Find the equation of this solid line in slope-intercept form. Okay, well, slope-intercept form looks like that. I would need B, or the intercepts, the y-intercept, in order to do this, and this is too hard to tell what it is. So rather than starting with the form they want, we are going to have to start with point slope form and then solve for y. So I have my x1, y1, I need a slope. So I know I'm perpendicular to this, right? That's what it told me. Okay, so his slope's a 4. If I want to be perpendicular, I have to do two things. I have to change the sign, so we'll make it negative, and I have to flip it. 4/1 flipped is 1/4, okay? So I now have a slope and I have a point. So y minus 5 equals -1/4, x minus -3, that's a +3, okay? Now I'm going to distribute that -1/4, and I'm going to add 5 to both sides. Okay, you can always do that in your calculator. That's going to end up giving you 20/4. So 20/4 minus 3/4 is going to be plus 17/4. And there is the equation of L in slope-intercept form. Okay. All right, we have another composition here. This one has g of f of x. So remember, we go right to left. So f is going to go into g. Okay, so I'm taking this and putting it into where my x is here. I'm going to distribute this. I get 3x plus 6 minus 4. Clean it up. There's my answer. Okay, so nothing really difficult, just a few odds and ends. And we have our very last two. Okay, both happen to be log problems. Okay, use properties of logarithms to condense, which means we want one log. All right. So I see I have coefficients. First thing I'm going to do, make my coefficients into exponents. There we go. Next thing I'm going to do, I see I have a minus, which means I can make it one log and a division. Here's my numerator. Here's my denominator. And there's my answer. All right, last but not least, solve the equation and reject any value not in the domain. Okay, this one is going to be one of those tricky ones where we need to check. Okay, and this says it could also be ln, because some of you aren't going to have the word log. Some of you are going to have the natural log. You're going to have ln, and I just want you to be aware they work the same way. Okay. Well, first thing I'm going to do is combine this side. So I'm going to have log base 3, and then these two are added together. So when I change to one log, they're going to be multiplied together. Okay. Now I have a log equals a log, I'm going to cancel those. So I have these two little parentheses equal 9. I'm going to distribute. I get 5x minus 15 plus x squared minus 3x equals 9. I'm going to clean up a little bit. I'm going to move my 9 over. I'm going to subtract them over. And there we go. Now, we've had to do a lot of quadratic formulas lately, but luckily this is not one of them. So I can factor this. I have a negative 24, so one factor will be positive, one will be negative, but 24 has a lot of factors, so make sure you look through them all. To combine and get a 2, I'm going to have to use the 4 and the 6. I want a positive 2, so I'm going to make my 6 positive. Okay, this gives me a positive 4 and a negative 6. Now, I don't want to just circle both of these and move on. I need to come up here to my original equation and plug them in. So let's try 4. 5 plus 4 is a 9, that's fine. 4 minus 3 is a 1, that's fine. Okay. 5 plus negative 6, that's a negative 1. And negative 6 minus 3, that's a negative 9. This one does not work. So please, please, please make sure that you are checking on your test. Some of you are going to have just one answer that works. Some of you will have 2 answers that work. And some of you won't have any, and you'll have a no solution situation. So please be careful and make sure you're checking and paying attention. And so that just brings us to the answers. So remember, we have 2 mistakes on these answers. Number 1 is just plain old I. Remember that? And then our second mistake is number 28. Okay, down here. This number is not correct. This is going to be $41,004.96. And our formula was actually wrong here. Okay, and I'm going to send out an email about that, but that will help you. Okay, I think that's it. So good luck, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.